Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
A recent Quinnipiac poll is giving us a better idea of how Americans are feeling about key issues leading up to the presidential election. But did they leave anyone out?
So this is one of those moments of the broadcasters, I told you so, or we told you so, or we told each other so.
Now, I think that that's embarrassing that you would even go there. Although I think I did do a stage bow earlier this morning, didn't I?
You did. And yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
Or was it yesterday? Whatever it was.
Okay. So Quinnipiac, one of the, I guess, top polling companies when it comes to political polling in the country, has got a poll that came out, and it does a comparison from last year to this year. It was conducted at the end of the month of January, so it's very fresh and current. And it's got all kinds of numbers about the presidential election, if it's Biden, if it's Trump, if it's Haley, what's Kennedy doing, et cetera, et cetera. Now, there's a bunch of stuff to take away from this poll. I know we had the privilege of talking about it on your morning show. That is your
no correction needed on that one.
your morning show. But I walked away troubled by it for the whole day because there's a couple of the things that come out of this are really stark. So I want to start with the big picture. This campaign's been going on now for quite a while. And let's face it, if Donald Trump ran twice for the presidency and dropped out before he defeated Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden ran twice for the presidency and dropped out before he defeated Donald Trump. And so this is a rematch with Biden and Trump. And the point is this has been going on now. This fight's been going on for a while. And people had a chance to vote for Trump in 2016. They had a chance to vote for Trump in 2020. And chances pretty good that if they voted for him twice, they're going to vote for him a third time. And I'm guessing that the people who voted for Joe Biden in 2020 are pretty darn likely to vote for him again. There's going to be some movement, but pretty darn likely. At least they've probably got a pretty good feel of what they're into, what they've bought into. So what's the campaign going to be about? So Quinnipiac, when they got done with all the horse race stuff, they asked a question on trending. They gave people the choice of 10 issues. And here's the 10 issues: economy, climate change, healthcare, racial inequality, immigration, abortion, gun violence, crime, preserving democracy, international conflicts, and something else. So they gave them, and then the question is basically, listen to these 10 issues. How would you rank them? What's most
Here's
important?
5 that are important to Democrats and 4 that are important to Republicans. Did we leave anything out?
Right. But what's important to you? Now, I love these kinds of polls because the best way to understand them is to flip them upside down. For example, the question of climate change is in here. And of the almost 1,500 people that they interviewed, that they either got on their cell phone or on a landline, 96% of the people that they talked to said that climate change was not their most important issue.
Doesn't mean it's not third or fourth. By the way, it doesn't mean that climate change isn't important from the standpoint of, I think they're abusing it and trying to control people with it. Like COVID, you could bring it up. Does that mean they're pro-mask or anti-mask? Concerned about vaxes or anti? You know what I'm saying? You don't know.
When you bounce the words off of them, only 4% say, yep, that's it. That rings my bell. That's biggest thing I'm concerned about going into this election.
And it's the number 2 thing the Democrats are running on.
The economy, interesting. Now there's 3 of the everything of the 10 were all in single digits, except for 3 issues. The economy, 20% of the people said it was most important. Immigration, 20% of the people said it was most important. Preserving democracy, 24% said that was the most important.
Now, the first 2, I believe, are the 2 driving forces of this campaign. Democracy is a driving narrative. Somebody's scoring points.
Thank you. We've really got to come to terms with this. We have said this campaign is going to be about the totality of the mainstream media, backed by George Soros and John Podesta's machine, which is the Democrat Party. Democrat Party's been hollowed out and remade and repurchased by George Soros, and John Podesta runs it. He sits in the White House right now and runs this entire process. So the Podesta-Soros machine has got this thing ginned up on that narrative that Donald Trump is the devil. He is the biggest dictator in the world. If you elect Donald Trump, the world as you know it will come to an end because democracy will come to an end, and it'll be worse than the end of the 20th century, worse than the great totalitarian regimes across Europe, worse than Nazi Germany, worse than the Soviet Union, worse than Stalin, worse than Pol Pot, than Mao Zedong. It will be the worst the world has ever seen. That's what you get with Donald Trump. That's their narrative. That's their campaign, and it's working.
Well, a third of it's working. I've said that Donald Trump, presuming he gets the nomination, and I think he's going to, and presuming it's against Joe Biden, he's really going to be running against abortion. That's the strongest thing they have. You have two incumbents in essence, because one's a former president, one's a sitting president, over a bad economy, a broken border, and failed foreign policy. So this guy's in trouble. I thought that the funniest part about the survey was his approval rating was 41%, which is failing beyond any belief. Oh, and it was his highest in a year and a half. So I use the analogy, imagine you're in school and you get your F paper if it says 41, and like you're all excited. Well, that's my best grade this semester so far.
F plus.
F plus, yeah. So he's really running against abortion. They are running on abortion, climate, and the soul of America and democracy. The only one that really seems to be resonating in pure narrative only is democracy.
So what the point is this, we are in for an entire balance of this campaign being nothing but the demonization of the personal character of Donald Trump. This will be scorched earth to the end, from the start to the finish, because when these numbers come out, the political consulting class gets together, they analyze the numbers, they make their pitches, and they start dialing for dollars. And what they're locking their major donors in is on saying, look, we can beat Trump. He's exactly where we've got him exactly where we want him. We're going to drive him into the ground on democracy, democracy, democracy. Now, we only need that. We can win on that and that alone. But just in case we need a little bit more, we've got a small play, but a significant play on abortion. Now, only 5% of the people that were surveyed said that abortion was the most important issue to them. Only 5%. So you say, what in the world are Joe Biden and Kamala Harris doing an abortion tour? What are they doing, spending so much time, energy, effort on abortion? Watch what happens. Everywhere, 95% of the campaign, everywhere you see the campaign, it'll be Trump is bad, democracy is ending. But then Kamala and Joe will go out into specific communities. They'll go into Pennsylvania. They'll go into New Jersey. They'll go into Wisconsin. They'll go into all the key states. They'll go into all those states where there are major populations of college students. And they'll go to the suburban communities around big cities in those states. And it will all be the abortion tour. That's what we're going to have from now to November. They believe they will win this election based on that formula.
Well, and they may very well be right. I had completely different takeaways than you. The first thing my eye went to was the head-to-head matchup because it shows Joe Biden now leading over Donald Trump. And then the change when you add in the third-party candidates. I went to the gender gap, which is 58-36 women leaning towards Joe Biden, which is up from 53% and 41% in December. So something has happened to shift this 5 points further with women towards Joe Biden. And I think it's Nikki Haley, but I'll get to that in a second. There is a male gender gap as well, 43-42%, almost a wash of the same gender gap that they have with women. And it too has risen, but just 2 points since December. So I go gender gap, women, abortion, autonomy for the Democrats, and then border security, national security, the economy, men leaning towards Donald Trump. But I thought the most significant thing, and you pointed out on your morning show, that's actually my listeners' morning show, called your morning show, that this is very undersampled among independents. which I thought was very interesting when I got to the point. If you add Robert Kennedy in there, among independents, and as you mentioned, undersampled, 35% of the support goes to Joe Biden, 27% goes to Donald Trump. Kennedy gets 24%. Now, keep in mind, undersampled among independents, and Kennedy's within 3 of Donald Trump, and he's within 9 of Joe Biden, and nobody's given him any coverage yet. And can you imagine how these numbers play in Michigan? I'm sorry. I circled this entire research and said, this is an RFK poll with a subheadline, and Nikki's starting to cause real problems for Trump.
It's halftime here at 1850 Main Street. Time to freshen up that cup of coffee. You can start every morning off right by listening to Your Morning Show with Michael DelGiorno. Tune in to stations across America and online at the free iHeart mobile app. Get a head start on the big stories of the day, every day, with Your Morning Show on the iHeart Network.
Well, that's the other part about this poll, that it points up the reality. Let's go back to the history. 2000, George W. Bush wins the election over Al Gore by 537 votes in Florida. How divided was America? 537 votes.
In Florida.
In Florida for the presidency. Okay. Bush wins easily post 9/11, the second run through. He's a wartime president. We get that. Open seat election. Obama wins big twice. Republicans can't touch him. They can't touch him with McCain
or Romney, right?
They can't touch him with Romney. Open seat election. Here we go. Hillary comes out and Trump comes out, and Trump wins by 10,000 votes or less in 5 key states. Biden comes out 4 years later, flips that exact same set of states by almost the exact same sets of numbers. How divided is America? How divided is America? How divided is America for the Republicans? They won by 537 votes. Then they won by 5 states with less than 10,000 votes, and then they lost by 5 states with 10,000 votes. The point is this: the Republicans have got to have everybody, and the Democrats have to make a mistake. Remember, Donald Trump came out with 75 million votes. That was 9 million votes more than he had to win the election the first time. 7 to 9 million, if I remember right. It's a big number, and he lost. That's why he's so frustrated. No seated president has ever run as strong in a second term as Donald Trump did, but he got beat by a bunch of votes because Biden came out with more.
Let me add this to the conversation. You bring up the open election of 2000, 500 votes in Florida. 2008, Barack Obama, 2016 and 2020, the flip-flop, Trump by whatever it was, 10 to 20,000 in a handful of states, and then it goes right back to Biden. And in none of those cases, 2000, 2008, 2016, or 2020, where America was very, very divided, did you have a third-party candidate sitting in the 24% zone among independents and the 20 zone overall. RFK's the game changer, and they have a choice now if they're sick of both of them. And by the way, to your point earlier, don't forget 70% of the Democrats, before we got into the heat of all this and mainly the abortion narrative, this was all about anybody but Joe Biden. 70% of his own party did not want him to run if he continues to move forward. Well, they're going to have a choice in RFK, especially Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania.
The only threat that RFK brings to Biden is if he takes electoral votes off the map. Right now, you'll notice that with RFK in the race, Biden still wins. So they don't care. He's like a Trump. He's like a Perot factor. They don't care how many votes he gets. Perot took out Bush.
Well, that's why I said the ultimate game changer. And this may be what is necessary to make up for the damage Nikki Haley's been doing. And that is, if Trump is smart enough to go with RFK, now you got yourself a big win, I think.
Well, RFK's already said he won't take the job. He said it straight up. He said it loud and clear. I don't think that's going to happen. But I'll tell you what Trump's only choice is right now is Haley. Only choice he's got. Because if he can't unite his party, he can't win.
Well, we always say the 3 keys are you've got to unite your party, energize your base heading into the general election and bring a key state. She doesn't bring a key state. I don't think it's going to energize the party because I can tell you, people always say Donald Trump doesn't forgive. Donald Trump's supporters forgive even less. That's going to be a difficult unite, and she certainly doesn't bring a state to it. I don't know. I think I'd get with RFK if I was him.
But it can't. It won't happen. There's no deal he can make. He cannot make that deal with RFK. I'd be thrilled to be wrong. It'd be one of the most exciting things I've ever seen as far as a ticket goes. It's from a historic ticket. It'd be remarkable to have an independent on the ticket for a vice president. So that'd be fascinating. There have been other people who've been mentored. Lee Iacocca was mentored as a potential vice presidential candidate. There have been lots of people over the years that have been mentioned, but this would be quite a remarkable setup. But the point is, Haley, if she loses in South Carolina and she and Trump don't come up with a deal, and then she decides to continue to play the disgruntled anti-Trump character through to the convention, she could very well cost Donald Trump the election. If they unite, they'd have to unite so dramatically and so dynamically that all of her supporters will come forward and none of Trump's supporters will leave. But the point is, when you look at the numbers, there's just the simple numbers, leave all the politics. This is not at all a partisan conversation at all. If a Republican wants to win the presidency in the United States going the whole way back to 2000, that's 24 years, it hasn't gotten any better for them. They need everybody they can get, and they need a big dose of independence to win it. And right now, the Quinnipiac poll shows they ain't got it. They're not there.
No one's ever discussed who Kennedy might add.
That's a great question.
You talk about being able to cut a deal that could. Now, I don't know that Kennedy and Manchin, that would probably hurt the Democrats a lot more than he's hurting them right now.
That'd be a very powerful ticket.
That would send it, I think, frankly, to Congress.
Yeah.
We could do a lot of different people under Kennedy and make this very problematic. I can tell you this, anybody that acts like they know what's coming, I mean, I find, this is what fascinates me, David. There are so many people that look at Joe Biden, and I get it. I get what you see. I've been around nursing homes. I've seen people that old walking with that look on their face, the confusion, the lostness. I mean, it's sad. And it's inconceivable to them that on the brink of wars and rumors of wars, maybe even escalating to Iran or Russia or China, that you would send this man into 4 more years. But you know as well as I do, the map is there for him.
They're totally committed to it.
It is the likelihood now. The secondary likelihood is that Donald Trump could unite his party, energize his base, maybe even grab a key state, and that he could maybe in his best moment win the rematch. I actually think where it's headed is Congress, because if this is RFK ignored, literally ignored, Ross Perot was nowhere near this at this time. He was at 8 percentage points, and he got a lot of attention in the general election. We're looking at a general election where no one may debate again. And you know how RFK will shine in town halls. And if he adds the right person to his ticket, I think anybody that acts like they know what's coming, I don't know. You've done it. 11 presidencies over 40 years. This may be the craziest yet.
Well, it's certainly different. And of course,
you won't go crazy. Different.
A lot of things can happen. I mean, and God forbid that any of these things should happen because they're not good for the country. There could be some ridiculous things that happen in court in regards to Trump, and they would be absurd and ridiculous, and that would be bad.
An illness, a death.
Joe Biden could fall down a flight of stairs. God forbid. No one wants that to happen. Nobody wants it to happen. And so there are things that can happen that can change the dynamic of what goes on. But when you look right now at what the consulting class and Podesta and Soros are doing in the culture, it's working. The Republicans are behind the curve. They are not responding in kind. So Nikki Haley's got a difficult decision to make. Does she turn in this environment and say, as you said to me earlier this morning, does she turn and say, okay, this poll shows I do better against Biden than Trump. I'm the victorious candidate. I'm the only one that can beat this. I'm the only guy that can beat Biden. It's Nikki Haley. Can she turn that and then come out of South Carolina with that being the mantra? Can she pull that off?
And it happens in politics that people play ugly for a while. Well, who plays uglier than Donald Trump? And then he'll pick somebody as a running mate. I just don't think putting Nikki Haley on the ticket is going to win my vote, let alone be a problem, I think, for their party.
Well, if they walk away from this primary process with Trump as the nominee and they don't have an alternative to solve the problem of the gender gap, particularly in the suburban communities and among young people, then they are going to have an incredibly difficult time.
No, very difficult. Very difficult.
Very, very
Perfect
difficult
storm
time.
difficult.
Now, the only other hiccup in this, the only thing that, there's a lot of surprises that could happen, but one big surprise is if the Republicans can finally turn around to understanding that they're wasting their time running against Joe Biden. If they were running against Kamala Harris, then people would start to look at this race differently. And the fact you got to ask yourself is, if we elect Joe Biden, are we really electing Kamala Harris?
Well, polls like this are going to keep old Joe around a little bit longer. Otherwise, I don't even anticipate him being on the ballot come November. I know we disagree on that one. I will also say this, that at some point, if you're Donald Trump, you got to be thinking about the future of the party. Now, he's not thinking about the future of the party like the RNC is thinking about the future of the party, but I hope he's thinking about the party in terms of Trumpism, not being absorbed like the Tea Party movement was absorbed and thus dissolved, quite frankly. If he wants to have a legacy, because he's not a dictator and he's not going to stay after 4 years, who's he handing off this party to? I think that's Vivek, but I don't know that that's sellable.
The only way we'll know if he understands that and he's going to do it is if he spends his time desperately working to elect members to Congress in this election cycle. If election it's all about him and there's no down ticket, unity and work, then he's only thinking about him. And I'll tell you, it might be that the only way people can protect themselves against what this campaign is going to be, which is a race to the bottom of scorched earth. The issues, we talked about issues today. I'm going to tell you, you won't hear discussions about issues from now till November.
Oh, no.
It'll all be about personalities and narratives. And the only way people can protect themselves is to get the best possible representation they can in their local district and in districts around the country. And this is one of the big things people never, ever stop to really think about. A vote in Congress is a vote in Congress. You can support somebody anywhere in America for Congress. Doesn't matter whether your guy can win or your gal can win or lose. You can support people. You can support 5 people in California that can flip seats. A vote in Congress is a vote in Congress.
On your morning show, that's really my morning show, but I don't take ownership of it because it belongs to listeners. We've talked about that. That's what we're going to focus on. Look, I have Mark Green as my congressman. My dear friend is Scott DesJarlais. We got 2 great congressmen in Tennessee, and they're not going to lose. So you know what? I'm looking for a key race, and that's where I would consider supporting, maybe even taking a road trip and knocking on doors. All right, so bottom line is, I think Soros and Podesta are in the driver's seat. I think in January, things look really, really good for them.
Yep.
I have
lose.
My big hope is not Donald Trump. My big hope is RFK. But that aside, if Soros and Podesta are in the driver's seat, we still haven't talked about early voting and get out to vote and registering voters, all the things that they always do better. The next thing is, what about their best foot soldier who somehow went through $150 million? Stacey Abrams. That's a show for Monday.
Did you know that you can hear Michael and David every day on your morning show on the iHeartRadio network? You can tune in daily or log on live to the free iHeart mobile app. Get a head start on the big stories of the day every day on your morning show. Then join us here where the conversation continues. Subscribe today so you don't miss a minute and visit 1850mainstreet.com to find out more. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.